everyone and welcome back to another video where today I want to take a look at the brand new cover for Doctor Who magazine because I've got some things to say about it. Obviously, we've been waiting for a while on confirmation as to who Billie Piper is playing, you know, why she's back and stuff. And fingers crossed, Doctor Who magazine is going to give us at least some indication of that stuff. However, at the same time, judging by this, it doesn't look like they're entirely sure either, to be honest. But I'm going to be taking a look at this cover and giving you my thoughts. Yes, I'm making a whole video about a magazine cover because I have that much to say. But subscribe if you're new, that would be greatly appreciated. We are trying to get to 30,000 subscribers and we're on 28,700. Any support would be greatly appreciated, but let's dive right in. So this is the cover. Billie Piper is the Doctor with a question mark. And it is a image of Billie Piper regenerating from the end of the reality war with the TARDIS in the background. Now this indicates a few things to me. For one thing, this cover alone is evidence of how rushed a decision this was, because we don't even have still an official image of Billie Piper in the costume or just even, you know, a new photo shoot of Billie Piper to mark her as the Doctor, or whoever it is that she's playing. I think the fact that this is just that scene from Reality War photoshopped onto a magazine cover is pretty indicative of how rushed and last minute this all was. Kind of further, you know, kind of dampening the whole it was always the plan thing. Like, this clearly wasn't the plan. You can tell that just by the way this is being promoted. Like I say, there's no kind of official image of Billie Piper as the Doctor beyond, you know, a screenshot from the reality board that was officially released, and then obviously that is being used as the cover for Doctor Who magazine, albeit photoshopped. And I mean, the other interesting thing that people have pointed out is, of course, Billie Piper is the Doctor, but it has a question mark on it. So still kind of playing coy as to whether she's the Doctor, whether she isn't the Doctor, what's going on there. And I kind of want to say that, like, you know, I love Billie Piper as an actress. I think she's great. She's great as Rose, and she's great in pretty much everything else I've ever seen her do. However, I can't be the only one that's finding this a little bit tiring, right? But of course, we have the text version. What I just showed you was the textless version of the magazine. Billie Piper is the Doctor, the 15th Doctor's last stand. Verada Sethu speaks to DDBM. And then we get a quote from Billie Piper saying, "To step back on the TARDIS was something I couldn't refuse." And then at the top, it says, Russell T Davies on pathways to potential futures. So that's something I actually find more interesting than the question mark itself, which seems to be getting a lot of the attention in the fandom, you know. Is she the Doctor or isn't she? Russell T Davies on pathways to potential futures. This to me indicates two things. One, I'm not 100% convinced even Russell T Davies knows who Billie Piper is playing yet. I think this was a last minute decision and they're kind of hurrying to put this all together. And number two, it looks like we're not going to get a definitive answer as to what form the show is going to take moving forwards in this magazine either, which I was kind of expecting. I mean, like, you know, if they were going to announce the show's future, they were going to do it, you know, in a big social media post rather than making it a magazine exclusive. But I think the fact that now we are coming up on, you know, sort of like 2.5-ish weeks since the Gatwa exit and Billie Piper appearing, and we have no real indication of, like, what the future is, makes me a little bit, like, nervous, you know what I mean? We've not really been in this situation before, where even during New Who's kind of, you know, nadir moments, for example, you know, towards the end of the Capaldi or Whittaker eras, respectively, we knew both of those times that something else was coming. Obviously, at the end of the Capaldi era, Jodie Whittaker was announced, and obviously Chris Chibnall was announced to be the successor in 2016. So even though there was a gap here, we all knew that, okay, it's coming back in 2017, and then we'll have a new team after that. And then obviously with Russell T Davies as well, obviously at the end of the Chibnall era, or at the end of Series 12, going into July of 2021, I believe, Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker announced to be leaving, and then obviously a couple months later, Russell was announced as taking the show forwards. Whereas this time, you know, we're a few weeks on from broadcast of the final episode, and we have no idea, you know, what the future of the show is, or anything like that. And judging by this cover, it doesn't even look like they're 100%. And I almost think that in a time like this where the show's future is so uncertain, playing coy as to whether Billie Piper is the Doctor or not probably couldn't be worse timed. By that I mean, we're at a point now where we don't even really have like an incumbent current Doctor. Ncuti Gatwa has left, but the identity of Billie Piper's, character, whether she is the Doctor or not, is still kind of up in the air. And I just don't find it particularly enjoyable at this stage. Maybe it's also just because of my objections to this decision that I've outlined in previous videos, but I think Joe Brennan, friend of the channel, kind of summarises my thoughts on this. Is anyone enjoying this nonsense? Not Billie being back. That's something I can understand liking. But at a time where the show's future is uncertain, casting doubt on whether we have a Doctor at all feels incredibly misguided. And I'm inclined to agree completely with that sentiment. I 100% agree with this. I guess the one thing that gives me hope is that I feel like if she definitively was the Doctor, we'd have an exclamation mark at the end, not a question mark. Although I have seen some people say that maybe the reason there's a question mark at the end is to be like, Billie Piper is the Doctor, what? As in that's the shocked reaction even from the magazine itself. And I'm sure that's the reaction they want us to have, but it's just not the reaction I had. But even still, I just think that this whole thing comes across as so desperate. There's no other way I can put it. It just comes across as desperate. I think maybe I'd be more on board with this if we had any idea of how it was going to get followed up on, but we don't. So it just sort of feels like a final Hail Mary to get the show to carry on, and I just wish I felt more positively about this, but I just don't. Hopefully the magazine gives us some answers, but as I say, judging by this cover, I'm not even sure they fully know yet. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think. I realise that this is quite a bit of a rant to do about a magazine cover. I am aware that it is just a magazine cover and, it's not going to be indicative of the actual contents of the magazine. But I just saw this and had a reaction to it, and I felt the need to, I guess, just sort of vent my frustrations about the position we're in with the show at the moment. I just find it so exhausting. Maybe I'll feel better when we actually know what the future is, rather than this weird, playing coy with, ooh, is it going to carry on? Is it not? Is Billie the Doctor? Is she not? I don't know, man. But let me know what you guys think. Subscribe if you're new, like if you enjoy, and I'll see you later.